A very good morning to you. You are watching Newsline with me, Chathuranga Hapuarahchchi. Now, this year has been extraordinary for Sri Lanka in terms of politics, in terms of the other things that have been happening around us. We are going to talk to Mr. Malinda Seneviratne about the May Day, which is not on the 1st of May, but on the 7th of May. And we are also going to talk about the 4th cabinet reshuffle that happened for the cabinet ministers, deputy ministers, as well as state ministers. And we are going to talk about the future of the country, obviously, and see where we are headed. Malinda, thank you very much for being here with us this morning.
Happy to be here.
Malinda, let's get to the topic straight away. Now, we know that the May Day rally was to be, the government took a policy decision to hold the May Day rally on the 7th of May instead of the 1st. Then the UNP decided to have it on the 6th of May at the Sugathadasa Indoor Stadium yesterday. We saw the UNP leadership, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, making several comments and laying out the future course of action, the plan of the UNP to the people who were present as well as the people across the country. Now, the Prime Minister also said that the government, UNP government, should continue for 20-30 years. He said that the Samurdhi Bank will be taken under the central bank, so on and so forth. But we also saw key figures of the United National Party not attending the May Day rally. Right. Now, you're a political commentator, and in your opinion, is there a break-up, a division within the UNP?
Before I get that, now last year they issued a challenge to the joint opposition, try to fill Golfies. I remember writing on Facebook around that time, the challenge will be after the May Day for any of the other parties to try to fill Golfies. They didn't do that. Now, with respect to those who have not attended the UNP May Day rally, I think Ceylon today has mentioned Ravi Karunanayake, Sagal Ratnayake, and I think Kabir Hashim. Yeah, important. I'm close political loyalists of Ranil Wickremesinghe.
True.
Maybe there were personal reasons why they could not attend. But more importantly, I think another newspaper had mentioned that the backbenchers of the United National Party who have expressed concerns about the apportioning of ministries and deputy ministers and state ministers, you know, how they were appointed, they have not attended. Ranjita Alvehara and Hirunika Premachandra, and they have been very vocal about why they say that we don't agree with the party, we don't agree where it's going.
Yeah.
But having said that, I mean, any party can have divisions and they can have their internal issues.
True.
And we have seen how Ranil Wickremesinghe, as the leader of the United National Party, you know, whatever, you know, ideological differences one may have with him, he has survived for more than 24 years. And he has held the party together to the extent possible. There have been people going out, coming in, and so on. But how important these divisions are, we don't know. He has the backing of Sajith Premadasa, who seems to be the designated next leader. He has his backing, and in that sense, I think these arguments and this dissatisfaction, which is natural in any party, I don't think they are significant.
But Malinda, now these dissatisfactions, as you put it, do not seem to be about the problems of the people, the sole reason that these people have been appointed into parliament. Now, we saw when the state ministers and the deputy ministers were reshuffled, several key ministers who were speaking to the media came forward and said, maybe the way forward is to be corrupt. Maybe that is what they want. Then maybe let's also do that. Now, that puts us the idea to say that they are willing to be corrupt to accept a new position. He was being sarcastic, of course, but that was the idea behind that statement. So, when it comes to the problems of the people, the questions the people want to ask, the politicians seem to be blind towards them, and when their benefits are in order, then they get together.
Right. Now, President Maithripala Sirisena put it well. I think he said that he was, I think, thinking about his opponents, but he might as well have been speaking about himself. I mean, his own party and the coalition that he's part of.
Yeah.
He said that politicians are mostly interested about themselves, self-interest that drives them. And Ranil Wickremesinghe said, there are people talk about various things, they criticize Yahaparne, but there is no, criticize the national government, but there is no alternative. There is no alternative to the national government as far as the UNP and the section of the SLFP, in diminished circumstances that Maithripala Sirisena leads, they don't have an alternative. They have to have the national government which allows them to have a cabinet which exceeds 30 members. That is, and they have not defined what national government is. I think if someone went to the Supreme Court, there's going to be a lot of problems. What is a national government? But what that allows is for people to bargain, petition the leaders, give me some ministership, give me something, I need this. So it is not about the people or resolving their problems. And one of the best examples is the so-called scientific reshuffle. President Maithripala Sirisena himself said that there was ministries where there were allegations, we made some changes. So if there are allegations, that means they are assuming there's some wrongdoing, the minister is responsible, at least, but at least the minister is either he has indulged in something wrong or he has been too incompetent to stop it. Now, how can an incompetent person being transferred to another ministry sort out the problems of that ministry?
True.
And each person who was shifted from one ministry to the other, are we to assume then that he or she was incompetent or was engaged in wrongdoing? So we have this situation where people, I think the government is confused. They are using words which they don't know. Now scientists have become bad words now. Just like Yahapalne became a bad word.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is right. In none of these statements have we seen anyone addressing the problems that the people have. We need to have a policy to sort out the problem. What the leadership of both parties have been saying is we are going to accelerate our program and get things done. But they don't have any, they have not said what the problem is, they don't know how to do it, they have not come up with a plan, they just issue policy statements about their political future.
Malinda, another interesting point is that while all of this is happening, while there are cabinet reshuffles, while there are political issues within parties, the economy of the country and the situation faced by the people of the country seems to be going on the other side, the downward slope. We know that the rupee has had an impact, the stock market has had a little impact according to the newspapers of the previous week. Now, all of this is happening in our country. But once again, we see that the politicians are worried about something else. Now, this has been the case. I remember talking to you last year around the same time frame, right after the May Day. We had a little chat and we spoke about whether the May Day is focusing its attention on the workers. This year, has there been any change?
The trade unions actually talk about the workers, but I mean the whole May Day is a sham, isn't it? It has been hijacked by political parties. It's a show of force. That was what it was about when the joint opposition had their May Day rally in Golfes, and they were not talking about it. They made some cursory remarks about that's tokenism, about workers and the conditions of work and all that. But mainly, okay, here we are big. How about you? You are small. That kind of stuff. But May Day is a sham for other reasons also. I mean, it's not only on the 1st of May that workers should be talked about. No one is interested in the situation of the workers for the rest of the 365 days of the year. But we have to also, now Mangala Samaravira of course has said, you talked about the economy and the status of the rupee. He says that last year we had the highest foreign direct investments ever. I don't know where these numbers came from or whether he can substantiate that claim, but on the street, in the market, you see we have a certain fixed income, more or less, most of the public servants especially, and they can't buy the same amount of goods that they bought the previous month. So how can that be an improvement of economy? I don't think there's no development. You can't say we are doing the infrastructure development so that we'll reap benefits later. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing happening on the ground. But economists probably would be able to speak to those issues much better. But in general, the economy is the last thing on the minds of politicians of this particular regime, because my sense is they are neglecting the whole economic thing. Is they feel, despite Ranil Wickremesinghe's claim that the United National Party is going to rule for the next 20-30 years, I don't know what Maithripala Sirisena is going to say about that, is that they feel that things are going out of their hands in 18 months, right? So we might as well try to fix whatever we can so that our futures are more or less secure in one way or the other, whether we shift to another political party or whether we rob money. I'm not saying Ranil Wickremesinghe is robbing money, there's no evidence of anything like that, but Maithripala Sirisena himself says these people are corrupt. Harsha D. Silva says everyone is corrupt. I don't know why Harsha is still in the United National Party and in this government. But these are the realities that these are not what I'm saying, this is what they are saying. President Maithripala Sirisena says they are corrupt, Harsha says they are corrupt. And in this situation, why should the corrupt and those who are interested in their political futures only worry about the people? Why should they worry about the workers? The workers are at the bottom of the pile. You think about them last, and you give them this thing called a May Day, which also has been shifted around. We say, these are workers, we can toss them here and there, who the hell cares?
Malinda, while all of this is very disappointing to hear, we also see that the people of the country also do not seem to understand that they hold the power when it comes to actually making a difference. Now we've seen countless number of elections in our country, and every time when there is an election, you see a group of people rallying behind one party, then another group of people rallying behind the other. Do you think that at least from whatever is happening around us now, with the level of education, with the level of knowledge that is being shared through media, social media, etc., people will have that changing spark?
I think people are very rational. They have a good sense of what is possible and what is not, and more often than not they feel, okay, we will go for the lesser evil, or like in the case of the 2015 election, we'll get rid of the guy in power, and it doesn't matter who comes in. I mean, everyone knew the track record of Maithripala Sirisena, Ranil Wickremesinghe, Chandrika Kumaratunga, and the rest of the people who were in that camp. But this didn't matter. We need to get rid of the Rajapaksa, so that is fine. Then now, some of them were actually, they believed that these people would do something different, so they are disappointed. But astute political observers, can't expect too much from these people. Like whatever you get, like the Right to Information Act and 19th Amendment in part, that's good. That is something we should be happy about. We are only going to get trinkets, nothing more. But there is a world trend where the major political mainstream parties are being rejected. Even Donald Trump was an outsider. Macron was not part of the mainstream party. So there is a trend where, globally, where this fascination and fixation that people have on with major political parties in the mainstream, it's getting eroded. So we have people like Nagananda Kodituakku and Rohan Pallewatha who are making a noise, and some people are taking serious. It's going to be a long struggle and probably very difficult, but those signs are very encouraging. It means that people are thinking different, and people are thinking we should do something else. This has failed us. Now everyone is talking about, okay, we got rid of the Rajapaksas, we got a democratic leader, so-called, and he has not delivered. Now what we need is a strong person, a strong man. We need someone like Gotabaya. You get that kind of thing. But then, is Gotabaya different? Which party is he coming from? Which coalition? And what have they done? What is their history? Are these the questions that the people are asking? I don't think they are really worried about that. That these guys need to go. These guys have failed, but if they ask the second question, what is our next best option? Then they have to look at people who are untainted either by their track record or by the track records of their associates and the political formations that they have been part of or they have aligned themselves to with. So people like Kodituakku and Pallewatha, people will brush them off and say, oh, they are crazy people, how can they do this, and so on. But a right campaign, a good communications campaign will definitely put them in a position where the major political parties will have to consider them. We'll have to take account. This guy is out there. And someone might say, well, he might be the best candidate for our coalition.
Malinda, now that brings us to an interesting point. The fact that politicians of this country depend on the media, depend on social media now as a new trend, and depend on everything that can take information to people, and they use it the wrong way. They use it to their advancement like anyone else would. But what you expect from a politician should be a bit different than that. You would expect that person to deliver on the promises. You would expect that person to, when we are at least voting in the first instance, to actually do something for your village. Now the local government election was held, and the main slogan behind it was that you will know who you are appointing, that person will be responsible for your ward.
Right.
Now I'm not sure whether you are from Colombo, but now all these wards in Colombo, I don't even know whether the people have seen who they have elected after the first sitting of the Colombo Municipal Council. This might be the case in the other areas as well. So even to that level, the local government level, the political system in our country does not work.
Well, with the local government election, there's a farce in certain aspects, because you double the number of members, and you essentially had 100% PR system because of the way they had the calculation, the way it calculated. But you are right, people don't really know. In certain cases they would know, but this particular local government election, usually local government elections are held immediately after a major election and the ruling party sweeps. But this was also a referendum on kind of a popularity assessment of the government, the Hapuarahchchi government, and that is the UNP and the SLFP, and they were given a message: we don't like you, we want you out, right? And again, they went to the former regime, essentially, the Podujana Peramuna. And you have a situation where it was like a national election rather than a local government election. It didn't matter. You could put like the Maharagama situation, where anyone could contest. You were going to vote for the Pohottua just to teach these people a lesson, or worse. So you're on your way out, brother, right? We have been given a chance to say whether we want you or not, and we are going to say that we don't want you. So that larger political matter also was expressed in that process. But in terms of representation, in terms of us knowing who is going to represent us, that like the JVP slogan, "Gama apita denna," like give us the village. Why should I give my village to anyone, right? They should be part of the village, right? So politicians come, take the village, put it in their pocket and go, right? And who owns the politician? The political party, and that political party will be owned by the coalition that political party is part of. So in the end, the village and the villager are not there they are absented in the whole process. So we have a huge issue of representation in this country, and which was, we see it in parliament and in other provincial council elections, and that was replicated in the local government election.
When you're spending 135 million monthly to upkeep 8,689 members for appointed to the local government, this is according to the Island newspaper today, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, and why? What do we get in return if there's nothing going to get done? Like I live in Kotta, in a small village called Kudamadu. The villagers got together, they collected money and they built a playground, right? Now, the Pradesh Sabha didn't help, the Palat Sabha didn't help, the government MPs, no one helped. They said we will pass money, no one helped, right? So I think that the people of this country should also understand the potential that they have. If they come together, if they are united. One of those boys told me, if you are united, if you are honest, and if you have some vision, there's nothing that we can't do. So that can be extrapolated to the entire country also, I think. 3
qualities that our politicians in our country lack?
Well, they say they have them,
but we do not see them in action.
We don't see it.
Coming back to the May Day, Malinda, now we see several May Days being held today. Ceylon Workers' Congress in the central part of the country, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party in the east of the country, the joint opposition and the Podujana Peramuna further down south, and several happening, the JVP one, several happening in Colombo as well. Now once again, I'm not talking to you about the financial aspect or whether people are satisfied with what they do. I'm just going to ask you this question. political parties seem to be, with the lack of a better word, taking the people for granted, and it has been the case for several years now. When can we see a change? This is part of the little description that we have. I said that I will ask you this question at the outset. When can we see a change?
It depends on what you mean by change, but if you're talking about the change that you imply, that where political parties and politicians do not take people for granted, where actually people are part of the wholes. Sometimes we want it to happen in our lifetime. Sometimes we want it to happen by the time I'm 50, or by the time in the next 5 years. But life and political processes are very long, so sometimes we can't predict, and we really don't know. And we are not crystal gazers, and we are not Sumanadasa, just put it a bit crudely. Now, the joint opposition was not allowed to have their May Day rally in Gulf. Right? So I think the government has learned a lesson. We will see some sense of where people, what kind of thinking people have on this issue that you raised by the numbers that we go to these places. It does not mean that they sometimes want to just go to see. Sometimes they say, okay, we want to say something to someone else, so we are going here. The SLFP has gone from Hyde Park to Kandy to Batticaloa, and some might say Batticaloa is part of our country. That's a retreat of some kind, that's a kind of a diminishing. United National Party went to, they could have had it at Golf, but they didn't. They had it at Sugaradas. It's a smaller contained area. I don't know what kind of numbers the JVP and the joint opposition to the Podujana Peramuna will have, but whatever it is, these parties are realities. They have strengths. And when you go on election day to the polling booth and you see 5, and you don't have an option saying none of the above, you will vote for one of those 4 or 5, right? And then what happens is, all of a sudden, we don't realize sometimes that we have not been given a reasonable option. We have been given an opportunity to choose which set of idiots or crooks or both, or incompetents, are going to make decisions on our behalf, going to represent us for the next 5 or 6 years. That is and we call that democracy. So I think that, I don't think that the people are actually ignorant of this reality. But then they are also very rational. They know that this man has robbed. They know how he has grown fatter after he became Pradesh Sabha member, and then how his house became bigger when he became a provincial council member, when he went to parliament. But if that person is going to put some tower on your road or do something, give your daughter a job, we are fine with that. So we are complicit in that sense. We are complicit. We also have our self-interest, not as grand as the politicians, but the little silver things that we want to get done, they get done, because we are more or less a country and a culture which takes the blows, grin and bear. We have a laugh, we make our jokes, we lose a cricket, we get sad, but next day we are fine. We are pretty laid back in that way. I don't know whether that's good or bad. Maybe that is good.
Well, in the interesting views there, now we also know that while the people of this country are being accused of people who forget things in 2 weeks by almost all politicians now, we can't forget the fact that a global movie icon passed away last week, and the medal that was kept near the remains were robbed by a person or a group of people. Now, while we hear right now that 5 people have been arrested on suspicion by the Bambalapitiya police, things like this, don't they actually diminish your, you are completely disappointed by what's happening. The country seems to be going from bad to worse by the hour.
Yeah, but theft of some award. So I don't know, some people said that it was stolen a long time ago. Some said it was. There are a lot of stories which I don't know what the truth is, but
something went missing.
Someone stole it, but that's one person. We should not blow that out of proportion. It's sad and it's shocking that someone like Lester, is disrespected in that way. But then, as someone said, at least that person loves this man. He can't sell it. He can't do anything with it. He's just keeping it so he can look at it and remember Lester. irresponsible, very selfish and all that. But you're right that when such things happen, we wonder who have that song by Patagoda, Api Kawuruda. Who are we? We don't ask ourselves that question enough, and we don't reflect on it long enough for us to come up with an answer. Then in the end we become pawns of some politicians, and we complain about it. We have lost our sense of our identity, and we are ignorant of the agency that we have to do something radically different, to be very, very different from what we used to be. And these kinds of incidents are not very encouraging.
Malinda, now when you talk about thievery, robbing someone, the other word that comes in your mind is bribery. So we know that two senior officials of the current government, president working for the president of the country, were arrested on bribery charges. Then they were put in remand, and the president came forward and said the law should be enacted swiftly. And now this has come to a situation where both parties are pointing fingers at each other. The UNP is saying, look, this happened under you, and the SLFP is saying, no, look, you all had the central bank bond scam under you. So two major parties pointing fingers at each other about two incidents that happened at two government offices. So once again, what is your view on this? Was it a targeted attack to tarnish someone's image? Was it revenge? Was it tit for tat, as some would say? What is happening?
Well, we don't. I don't know. I have been into their minds to know, but we should not leave out those who rule this country. Also, they are also pretty tarnished. They tarnish themselves, and it's not only about people propaganda and people pointing fingers. But in this situation, the positive thing is that these people, some action has taken place. At least they've been arrested, and then I suppose SLFP loyalists can say, where is Arjuna Mahendra? Questions like that. But at the same time, the person who has replaced the Timber Corporation chairman, I saw in the island today that Seneviratne had mentioned, is a tainted man himself. He has been accused, and he had to resign from because he tried to take someone
money.
No, he gave someone, took someone to Japan saying he's his assistant or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, people also change and become better, maybe. But I don't think it's tit for tat. I think if it hadn't come out, no one might have known about it. It's not. I do not believe that our leaders do not know what those who are under them are doing. If there is corruption if any leader or if any head of institution is corrupt, that's a license for anyone under him or her to steal. And if there is thieving going on and there's theft and corruption down the line, it means that the boss is a thief, or else he or she is incompetent. So you can put the hat. It's pretty clear. If there is corruption in this country, that's acknowledged. As I said, Harsha D. Silva said, Maithripala Sirisena, the president, has said this, and I'm sure Ranil Wickremesinghe would agree. And they have to decide to what degree they are complicit in all this.
Malinda, thank you very much for being here with us this morning and talking to us about the situation in the country. Several topics we covered today. So once again, it's interesting to talk to you, and thank you very much for being here. That's all we have from Newsline this morning. We will join you tomorrow as well with an interesting guest, same time, same place. So stay tuned to TV1 throughout the day. We bring you several news updates throughout the day, as well as on our primetime news updates. Thank you for watching. I've been Chathuranga.